A dogfight in the modern era is practically unheard of. But if we were to see something between, heavy Israeli strike aircraft like the F-16D or F-15I and against Iranian F-14 Tomcats, which I don't even think there are any left, they've been pretty much hammered by drone strikes, and any that are operational, yes, I know the ones that are shown in the video are technically ones that can't operate or weren't operational. Any that would be operational will either be destroyed on the ground or shot down by F-35s. But if we were to see a conflict where for somehow Iran was able to sneak an F-14 behind Israeli frontal defense and got into a dogfight with Israeli F-16Is or F-16Ds or F-15Is or any heavier unexpected Israeli strike fighter, is it possible Iran could, shoot down an Israeli F-16 or F-15? And it's technically no, it's not impossible, but I think it's highly improbable. Iran's already pretty much lost all of their Tomcats, and like I said already, to sneak around underneath a whole air defense, a whole AWACS system, and F-35s, not to talk about just the modern weapon systems on board even the strike aircraft that Israel operates, it's just practically unheard of. I don't think it could happen. But obviously it's a possibility. Now, Iran, I doubt their Tomcats are still operational. Let's be completely honest here. They haven't had parts for them in almost 20 years. They're out of weapon systems for them. They'd have to be completely revamped. And plus, the second they wheel themselves out of their enclosed underground, any underground bunkers that they're in, that if they're still operational, that is, if they haven't already been destroyed, as we've already seen drone strikes have taken out at least 2 that we're aware of, that I understand those weren't necessarily operational, but you guys get the picture. The second those come out, they're going to be hammered, either destroyed on the ground or destroyed the second they take off by F-35s or by, surface-to-air missile threats. But just say, Tomcats were to get involved with dogfights against Israeli strike aircraft. Is it possible we could see one, take down an Israeli strike fighter? And like I said, it's not necessarily impossible. They could technically do it. Do I think it's, and like I said, I think it's likely no. But I think the fundamental thing is, it is a possibility that Israeli pilots might need to prepare for. That if Iran were to somehow sneak a F-14 or lower a strike fighter into a dogfight, it's a possibility that could necessarily happen. Now, one thing I wanted to say about this is Iran F-14s have not, obviously they haven't had weapon systems in forever. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even know if anything is still functional with those aircraft. This includes the 20mm cannon. It's very possible Iran isn't able to even operate the Vulcan that's on board the F-14 anymore without its, upgrades. I've heard, I think that's a big possibility. And then as far as old IR missiles go, they don't get more. You're looking at an aircraft that maybe has a couple Phoenixes or AIM-7s and maybe some old gun ammo that they've stored for years and years in case they ever needed it. I don't think it's an actual effective fighting aircraft. I really don't. On top of all that, say they had Falcor 90s or AIM-54s or AIM-9Ps and AIM-7Es or AIM-7, whatever. They're looking at going against Israeli aircraft that are going to be armed with Python 5s and Derby or AIM-120s. It just is impractical. And on top of all of that, to actually find a way to go up against an Israeli strike aircraft seems probable to none, especially if Israel is going to be using the F-35. And even if they were to jump a strike formation of F-15s or F-16s, I still think they'd be able to hold their own with the upgraded weapons that they have. It's just something to kind of ponder if you guys, think the F-14 is going to get one last duel. I, for a very long time, thought that all of Iran's F-14s would go out in a blaze of glory with a clash with American F-18s or F-35s, and now, as we've seen, that I don't even think they've even gotten airborne in this conflict. We know for sure the 2 have been destroyed by drones, and I'm sure more that we haven't even really heard about. On top of all that, any operational ones, like I said, the second they get even, ready to get airborne or get airborne on top of that, they're just going to get downed by F-35s or any sort of SAM system. I really don't think we're going to see F-14s being of any use. And that kind of means it's the end of an era. That the Tomcat is officially done. Iran is no longer going to be using them after this conflict, at least as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure Israel is going to destroy all of them. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Do you guys think it's a possibility we see a strike, an Israeli strike fighter go down to an Iranian F-14? I think it's not going to happen, but, something to think about. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in a later video.